Daniel never believed in fate until the day he found a dying puppy in a cardboard box. It was freezing that morning, the kind of cold that turned breath to fog and made fingers ache. Daniel had passed that same gas station dumpster 100 times before, never giving it a second glance. Until today, when a weak, whimpering sound cut through the hum of traffic. He nearly walked right past it. Just another discarded box. But then, movement. The cardboard shifted. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he knelt down. Inside, curled into a soaked towel like a discarded piece of trash, was a tiny German Shepherd puppy. His ribs pressed sharp against thin fur, his body trembling violently. One eye was crusted shut with infection. The other stared up at Daniel, wide with a silent plea. Not for food, not for play, but simply not to be left behind again. Every logical thought told Daniel to call animal control. He wasn't a dog person. He had no idea how to care for a sick puppy. And yet, all he could think about was Lena, his wife, once so full of light, now confined to a wheelchair after the accident. The way her laughter had faded into quiet resignation over weeks of physical therapy and isolation. The hollow look in her eyes when she thought he wasn't watching. So Daniel did something reckless. He wrapped the shivering puppy in his coat, ignoring the dirt and fleas, and carried him to the truck. The puppy didn't struggle. He just pressed his freezing nose against Daniel's wrist as if he already knew. This was his last chance. That decision, made in a single heartbeat, would change everything. Because this puppy wasn't just a stray. He was meant to find them. And one day soon, he would stand between Lena and death itself. The moment Lena held the trembling puppy, the entire atmosphere in the room changed. The air itself seemed to grow warmer, the shadows in the corners of their home less oppressive. As Daniel carefully transferred the shivering bundle into Lena's waiting arms, he saw something extraordinary happen. The puppy's frantic trembling slowed, then stopped completely as he nestled into the curve of her elbow. The little creature, now named Rusty, pressed his tiny body against her chest with surprising determination, his two big paws kneading gently at the soft fabric of her sweater. Then came the sigh, a deep, shuddering exhale that seemed to come from his very soul, as if he'd been holding his breath his entire short life, and could finally relax. His warm weight settled against Lena's heart, his damp nose brushing her collarbone as he looked up at her with one clear, trusting eye, the other still healing. Daniel watched stunned as Lena's eyes, which had been dull with pain and exhaustion for months, suddenly softened in a way he hadn't seen since before the accident. A single tear slipped down her cheek as her surgeon's hands, once so precise and confident, now trembled slightly as they cradled the puppy with exquisite, her hand pausing mid-stroke on his back. But the puppy didn't respond to her voice. His entire body had gone rigid, his unblinking stare fixed on the darkened hallway leading to the back door. A thin line of drool stretched from his bared teeth to the carpet as the growl intensified. His puppy paws planted wide in a stance far more mature than his age. Daniel felt his pulse kick up as he followed Rusty's laser focus. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Just the usual shadows thrown by the streetlight through the kitchen window. Then he saw it. The back door's handle was moving, not from wind or settling, but with deliberate testing pressure, upper, then down, then up again in slow, calculated increments. Ice flooded Daniel's veins. Someone was outside. Someone was testing their lock. Rusty's growl hitched louder, his front legs bending slightly as if preparing to launch. The transformation from docile companion to protective sentry was instantaneous and terrifying. Daniel found himself moving before he'd fully processed the danger, his body blocking Lena's wheelchair as his eyes darted between the door and the phone on the counter. The handle stopped moving. A beat of silence. Then, the unmistakable scrape of a shoe on the concrete step outside. Rusty exploded into action, his bark shattering the tense quiet like gunfire. He didn't charge the door, but planted himself firmly between it and Lena, his barks coming in sharp, measured bursts. Alarm calls spaced perfectly to rouse the household without descending into frantic noise. Every muscle in his young body quivered with restrained energy, his gaze never wavering from the threat. Daniel's mind raced as he grabbed his phone, his other hand reaching for the baseball bat beside the couch. The intruder must have thought the house an easy target, a disabled woman home alone. They hadn't counted on Rusty, hadn't counted on the way the puppy's warning barks carried through the neighborhood, or how his presence suddenly made their modest home feel like a fortress. As quickly as it began, the pressure on the door ceased. Through the window, Daniel caught the blur of movement as someone retreated across their backyard. Rusty kept up his vigilant stance for a full minute after, his chest heaving, until Daniel finally rested a hand on his head. "Good boy," he breathed, his own hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. But Rusty didn't relax. His ears remained pricked, his body tense. This wasn't over. The puppy seemed to know what Daniel was only beginning to understand. This wasn't a random burglary attempt. Someone had been watching them, and now that Rusty had revealed himself as a protector, the danger had only just begun. The intruder came back the next night, and the night after that. Like a predator testing the boundaries of its prey, he returned with increasing boldness, rattling windows, jiggling door handles, leaving muddy boot prints beneath the kitchen window where he'd stood peering in. Each time the darkness brought new threats. Each time Rusty met them with unwavering vigilance. The puppy who had once fit neatly in Lena's lap now stationed himself at strategic points through the house, his ears constantly twitching towards sounds Daniel couldn't hear. He developed an eerie sixth sense for danger, waking from deep sleep moments before another attempted break-in. His barks became more calculated, not panicked yelps, but sharp, authoritative warnings that sent neighbors reaching for their phones. Then came the night everything changed. Daniel was washing dishes when Rusty suddenly went rigid, a growl building in his chest before the back door even rattled. This time, the intruder didn't test the lock. He kicked it. The wood splintered with a sickening crack as the door burst open, revealing a hulking figure silhouetted against the moonlight. Time slowed. The man took one step inside before Rusty launched himself across the kitchen like a tawny missile. No warning bark this time, just 60 pounds of muscle and fury slamming into the intruder's legs. The puppy's teeth closed around the man's wrist as a knife flashed in the dim light, the blade glinting as it arced downward toward Rusty's exposed back. Daniel moved without thought. He tackled the intruder with a force that sent them both crashing into the refrigerator. The knife skittered across the tile as they grappled, the man's rancid breath hot against Daniel's face. Out of the corner of his eye, Daniel saw Rusty circling like a wolf, waiting for an opening to strike again without getting in Daniel's way. When police arrived minutes later, they found the would-be robber curled on the ground, moaning about the damn dog as Rusty stood guard over him, lips peeled back in a silent snarl. The officer's flashlight beam illuminated the crumpled note pulled from the man's pocket. Meticulous surveillance details and easy target. Beneath it, newer additions. Big dog now. Always watching. And finally circled twice, as if the realization had come too late. Not easy. As the officers led the man away in handcuffs, Daniel knelt beside Rusty, running trembling hands over the dog's body, checking for injuries. Rusty panted heavily, his entire body vibrating with residual adrenaline. But when Lena called his name weakly from the bedroom, he immediately trotted to her side. The knife had missed Rusty by inches. The intruder's notes made clear he'd been stalking them for weeks. But none of that mattered now as Rusty pressed himself against Lena's shaking form, his warm tongue gently licking the tears from her cheeks. The puppy from the cardboard box had grown into a protector. The man who thought he'd found an easy target had chosen the wrong house, the wrong woman, and most of all, the wrong dog. The veterinary clinic smelled of antiseptic and nervous animals as Daniel held Rusty still for the scan. What should have been a routine checkup had turned into something far more significant when the vet mentioned an odd lump beneath Rusty's shoulder. "Probably just a microchip," the vet said offhandedly as she passed the scanner over Rusty's fur. The machine beeped sharply. Daniel watched as the vet's eyebrows shot up. She adjusted the scanner, passed it again. Another beep. Her expression shifted from professional curiosity to something approaching awe. "This isn't a standard pet chip," she murmured, fingers flying across her keyboard. The clinic's computer screen filled with lines of coded information. "This is military grade." Daniel's grip on Rusty's collar tightened unconsciously. The dog sat perfectly still, as if he knew exactly what was happening. The vet turned the monitor to show Daniel. "According to this, your dog was part of an elite K9 breeding program, German Shepherd Line 478X, trained for detection and protection work from birth." She scrolled further, her voice dropping. "But he washed out." Daniel stared at the screen, at the official-looking documents bearing government seals. "What does that mean?" "Means he tested too highly on one particular trait." The vet met Daniel's eyes. Empathy. The notes say he refused to bite trainers during aggression drills, kept breaking protocol to comfort distressed handlers. They labeled him unsuitable for service. A cold realization washed over Daniel. He looked down at Rusty, who gazed back with those soulful amber eyes, eyes that had immediately recognized Lena's pain that first day. The vet continued, her voice softer now. These programs usually dispose of dogs that don't make the cut. Someone must have taken pity on him. Let him go instead. Daniel thought of the cardboard box by the dumpster, the single eye blinking up at him through crusted infection. The way Rusty had sighed when Lena first held him, as if coming home. The pieces clicked together with almost painful clarity. Rusty hadn't failed at all. He'd been destined for something far more important than police work. The vet smiled as she watched Rusty press against Daniel's leg. That empathy they saw as a weakness, it's what makes him perfect for your wife. He doesn't just protect, he heals. Daniel knelt to bury his hands in Rusty's fur, the truth settling into his bones. This was no accident. The gentle reject, the broken woman, the grieving husband, they'd all been meant to find each other. As they walked back to the car, Rusty moved with quiet dignity, his head high. The afternoon sun glinted off his new dog tag as it swung from his collar. Daniel had ordered it special after the break-in. It read simply, Hero, because that's what Rusty had always been. Not a failed K9, but a guardian angel in fur. Not too gentle, but exactly gentle enough. Perfect for Lena. Perfect for them. Years later, when the nightmares have faded to distant memories and the security cameras have been taken down, Rusty still sleeps between them every night. His once gangly puppy frame now fills the space perfectly, a warm, breathing barrier against the world. His muzzle has grayed, and he moves a little slower on rainy days. But when Daniel reaches down in the dark to feel the steady rise and fall of Rusty's chest, the comfort is exactly the same as it was that first year. Lena walks now without pain, her surgical scars faded to thin white lines. She gardens again, her hands steady as they plant flowers along the back fence. The same fence Rusty once protected with such fierce determination. Sometimes Daniel catches her pausing to watch Rusty doze in a sunbeam, her eyes shining with the same wonder they held when she first cradled his shivering body.
Evening at 5:15,
But some things never
Rusty
change. Takes up his post by the front window, his tail thumping against the floor when Daniel's car turns into the driveway. The ritual is always the same, enthusiastic circles around Daniel's legs, a quick nose check of his work bag for treats, then an immediate trot to the kitchen to supervise dinner preparations. When summer storms roll in, bringing thunder that shakes the windows, Rusty doesn't cower. He simply rests his heavy head on Lena's lap, his deep brown eyes conveying a silent message. I'm here. You're safe. And when the nightmares come, for all three of them, Rusty is there first, licking away tears before they even fully wake. He still watches over them with the same quiet vigilance, though the threats are different now. Not intruders, but loneliness, grief, the slow passage of time. He herds Lena toward her medication when she forgets, nudges Daniel away from his laptop when he works too late, and positions himself strategically between them during difficult conversations, as if his presence alone could soften hard words. Because some bonds defy explanation. Some souls are meant to find each other against all odds. The broken soldier, the grieving surgeon, and the rejected K9. They came together in their fractured states and somehow made each other whole. Even in the darkest nights, even in the most hopeless of places, even in a cardboard box by a gas station dumpster, where fate hid a miracle wrapped in matted fur and trembling limbs. A miracle named Rusty, who proved that sometimes the greatest heroes come in unexpected packages, and that love once found never really fades. It just grows deeper, quieter, woven into the fabric of everyday life. Like the way an old dog still perks up at the sound of his name. Like the way a husband and wife still reach for each other in the dark. Like the way three hearts that found each other by chance continue to beat as one, yesterday, today, and for all the tomorrows they've been given. If this story gripped your heart, don't scroll away. Like, share, and follow for more tales of love, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that save us when we need it most. Because every hero has a story, even the ones with four paws.